The Elder Scrolls entails an extensive and often complicated universe that's often hard to grasp. And while we have many lore videos on the platform, the lore of the Elder Scrolls Online gets often overlooked. In this lore corner, I will read through every book from Shalidor's library, an encyclopedia of what Elder Scrolls Online deems to be the most important lore. In today's video, I will read through all 10 books of the Daedric Princess section. Among others, we will learn more about Azura, Vaermina, and why Molag Bal is somehow even worse than you thought. Two things before we can get started. I don't like asking for likes at the beginning of the video when you haven't seen anything of it just yet, but I don't want to interrupt the video midway through, so please give it a thumbs up and perhaps subscribe if you'd like to see more videos like these in the future. And second, sit back, relax, and enjoy. Grab a snack, cozy up, or start your farming session in whatever game you're currently playing, as we start with the lore of the Daedric Princess. Aedra and Daedra. The designation of gods, demons, Aedra and Daedra, are universally confusing to the layman. They are often used interchangeably. Aedra and Daedra are not relative terms. They are elvish and exact. Azura is a Daedra both in Skyrim and Morrowind. Aedra is usually translated as ancestor, which is as close as Cyrillic can come to this elven concept. Daedra means roughly not our ancestors. This distinction was crucial to the Dunmer, whose fundamental split in ideology is represented in their mythical genealogy. Aedra are associated with stasis. Daedra represent change. Aedra created the mortal world and are bound to the earth bones. Daedra, who cannot create, have the power to change. As part of the divine contract of creation, the Aedra can be killed. Witness Lorkhan and the Moons. The Protean Daedra, for whom the rules do not apply, can only be banished. Boethia's Proving. The following account is true. May it serve as a warning to those with ears to hear and hearts to know. On a certain day, at a certain time, the faithful gather to perform certain rituals, hoping to gain a glimpse of their master. The day was correct, the summoning true. Slashing a smoking tear through the veil, she, her very self, appeared before them, terrible and resplendent. She came arrayed in ebony darker than a moonless night, wielding a blade burning hotter than the surface of the sun. And though she wore the guise of a Dunmer warrior queen, she towered above them like a statue carved from the Red Mountain itself. "Why have you disturbed me?" Surprised, the first among them prayed, "O Boethia, prince of plots, deceiver of nations, queen of shadows, goddess of destruction, we come to worship thee." She looked down upon her followers gathered to bear witness. Frowning, she asked the first, "Tell me, you who profess to know me, how shall I know you?" Afeared, he exclaimed, "Each night I pray to thee, each night I call out to thy wondrous names. Surely thou must recognize the sound of my voice, thy most devoted of believers?" She frowned and let out a long sigh, and then, of a sudden, he was gone, the air from her lungs dispersing him. Turning to the second, she asked, "And you? How shall I measure the worth of your existence?" Stunned by the power of her voice, he bowed before her darkening visage. She clapped her hands, and he too was gone. To the third, "And you, tell me, how shall I know you apart from such as were they, of whom there is no trace?" Shaken and speechless from the nullifications of his brethren, he whispered, "Have mercy upon us." She blinked twice. Once, he was in agony. Twice, he was destroyed. She cast a withering glance across those remaining and said, I do not grant mercy. And so it was with the others, she putting them to proof, they offering none. Finally she came to me, eyes aglow with anger, tongue wet with hate, and said, "Of all my believers but 2 remain. Tell me, second to last, with what shall you prove your existence?" Without hesitation I drew forth my blade and buried it in the chest of the other who stood beside me, and without fear I replied, "Ask him whose blood now spouts from my blade if I exist." She smiled, and the gates of oblivion opened between her teeth. Then she said, "Tell me, now last of my followers, wherefore do you remain where the others do not?" I retrieved my blade and offered it up, saying, "I am alive because that one is dead. I exist because I have the will to do so. And I shall remain as long as there are signs of my handwork, such as the blood drippings from this blade." Accepting my gift, she nodded and said, "Indeed. If in the reading your blood boils in your veins and your mind blazons with fire, then Boethia calls you. It is then most wise to heed her call." Fragmantae Abyssum, Hermaeus Morus. So Ysgramor collected the gemons of the giant wives and brought them to Froa and Grosta, who twisted them into the woeful bowstring, so that Ysgramor could restring his mighty bow, Long Launcher. And thereafter did Long Launcher sigh when it was born, and moan when it was shot. And Ysgramor decided to take it hunting. And he hunted and slew much game in the Atmoran Frostwood, until he paused at a ford to drink his fill. Then across the stream bounded the white stag of Forelgrim, and Ysgramor shot at it and missed, which in no wise pleased him. And he swore to pursue the white stag until it fell to him. But the stag was canny and quiet, and passed as a mist over the snow, so that Ysgramor did again and again sight it and lose it. For even the sighing of the woeful bowstring made more sound than did the white stag. When again he lost the trail and stopped, sore vexed, and Hare did appear and spake, saying, "The stag heeth adown into yon vale." "How knoweth you this?" demanded Ysgramor of the Hare, which replied, "I know, for I have long ears. Yea, had you ears as long as mine, you too could hear your prey wherever it went." "Would then," said Ysgramor, "that my ears were as long as thine." At that, the hare's nose did twitch, and Ysgramor felt his ears begin to grow and point. But a fox did leap from the coppice and fall upon the hare, slaying it, and Ysgramor, in wonder, felt his ears dwindle to their wonted size. And the fox spake, saying, "Know thou, mortal, that I am sure, and this was nary hare, but indeed Hermaeus, who did nearly trick thee into becoming of elven kind. Rely you hereafter, mortal, upon the forthright methods of man, and eschew the tricks of the elves, lest ye become one. Now, go, for the white stag awaiteth thee in the vale." Hermaeus, Paru Ada, Oya Nagaya, Aba Agea, Kava Apokra, Dena Gorea, Gandra Arkan. Hermaeus Mora, elder than Aedra, abyssal cephaliarch, hearken to the plea of this unworthy, for I come to barter the knowledge denied. That which I seek is named on this parchment, which I consume in your honor, O demon of knowledge. For my desire is to know beyond reckoning, and in recompense, whatever price is named, shall be met. Hermaeus, Hermaeus, Altodon, Parome, Lacan, I. My next dream was of Apocrypha, where I walked the halls of shadow among the nameless books, among concepts and arguments I inhaled like smoke. In my left hand was a scroll of vellum, in my right hand a plume, and I wrote histories as I passed. Yet the scroll was unfilled, for as I wrote beneath, the words above vanished. Then I paused at a plinth of lapis, for it contained an object, heretofore unremarked, an urn with a curious finial. So I set aside scroll and plume, grasped the finial and lifted the lid. Within the urn was a viscous and noisome fluid, upon which floated, grey and glistening, a mortal's organ of thought. And I knew, though I know not how, that the fluid was not brine, and the brain was not preserved, but alive, alert, and brooding with a dark intellect. I dropped the lid and looked up from the urn and saw, beyond the plinth, a long and endless corridor, lined left and right with plinths uncountable, and upon each plinth was its urn. Which was why, when I awoke, my tongue was bitten through. Invocation of Azura by Sigilla Parati. For 300 years I have been a priestess of Azura, the Daedric prince of Moonshadow, mother of the rose and queen of the night sky. Every Hogithum, which we celebrate on the 21st of First Seed, we summon her for guidance, as well as to offer things of worth and beauty to Her Majesty. She is a cruel but wise mistress. We do not invoke her on any Hogithum troubled by thunderstorms, for those nights belong to the Mad One, Sheogorath, even if they do coincide with the occasion. Azura at such times understands our caution. Azura's invocation is a very personal one. I have been priestess to 3 other Daedric princes, but Azura values the quality of her worshippers and the truth behind our adoration of her. When I was a dark elven maid of 16, I joined my grandmother's coven, worshippers of Molag Bal, the schemer princess. Blackmail, extortion and bribery are as much the weapons of the witches of Molag Bal as is dark magic. The invocation of Molag Bal is held on the 20th of Evening Star, except during stormy weather. This ceremony is seldom missed, but Molag Bal often appears to her cultists in mortal guise on other dates. When my grandmother died in an attempt to poison the heir of Firewatch, I re-examined my faith in the cults. My brother was a warlock of the cult of Boethia, and from what he told me, the Dark Warrior was closer to my spirit than the treacherous Molag Bal. Boethia is a warrior princess who acts more overtly than any other Daedroth. After years of skulking and scheming, it felt good to perform acts for a mistress which had direct, immediate consequences. Besides, I liked it that Boethia was a Daedra of the Dark Elves. Our cult would summon her on the day we called the Gauntlet, the 2nd of Sun's Dusk. Bloody competitions would be held in her honor, and the duels and battles would continue until 9 cultists were killed at the hand of other cultists. Boethia cared little for her cultists. She only cared for our blood. I do think I saw her smile when I accidentally slew my brother in a sparring session. My horror, I think, greatly pleased her. I left the cult soon after that. Boethia was too impersonal for me, too cold. I wanted a mistress of a greater depth. For the next 18 years of my life, I worshipped no one. Instead, I read and researched. In an old and profane tome, I came upon the name of Nocturnal. Nocturnal the Night Mistress. Nocturnal the Unfathomable. As the book prescribed, I called to her on her holy day, the third of Hearthfire. At last, I had found the personal mistress I had so long desired. I strove to understand her labyrinthine philosophy, the source of her mysterious pain. Everything about her was dark and shrouded, even the way she spoke and the acts she required of me. It took years for me to understand the simple fact that I could never understand Nocturnal. Her mystery was as essential to her as savagery was to Boethia or treachery was to Molag Bal. To understand Nocturnal is to negate her, to pull back the curtains cloaking her realms of darkness. As much as I loved her, I recognized the futility of unraveling her enigmas. I turned instead to her sister, Azura. Azura is the only Daedra princess I have ever worshipped who seems to care about her followers. Molag Bal wanted my mind, Boethia wanted my arms, and Nocturnal, perhaps my curiosity. Azura wants all of that, and our love above all. Not our abject slavering, but our honest and genuine caring in all its forms. It is important to her that our emotions be engaged in her worship, and our love must also be directed inward. If we love her and hate ourselves, she feels our pain. I will, for all time, have no other mistress. Modern Heretics, a study of Daedra worship by Haderes of Gottlesfont. Daedra worship is not prohibited by law in Cyrodiil. Primarily, this is a result of the Imperial Charter granted the Mages Guild permitting the summoning of Daedra. Nonetheless, chapel and public opinion is so strongly against Daedra worship that those who practice Daedric rituals do so in secret. However, opinions about Daedra worship differ widely in other provinces. Even in Cyrodiil, traditional opinions have changed greatly over the years, and some communities that worship Daedra survive. Some more traditional Daedra worshippers are motivated by piety and personal conviction, while many modern Daedra worshippers are motivated by a lust for arcane power. In particular, questing heroes of all stripes seek after fabled Daedric artifacts for their potent combat and magical benefits. I personally discovered one community worshipping the Daedra Lord Azura, Queen of Dawn and Dusk. A researcher curious about Daedra worship might investigate in several ways: through a study of the literature, through exploration and discovery of ancient Daedric shrines, through questioning local informants, or through questioning worshippers themselves. I used all these means to discover the shrine of Azura. First, I read books. References like this one may provide a helpful general background concerning Daedric shrines. For example, my researches led me to understand that in Cyrodiil, Daedric shrines are generally represented by statues of Daedra lords. They are generally situated in wilderness locations far from settlements. Each shrine generally has associated with it a community of worshippers, often referred to as a coven. Shrines have associated with them a particular time, often a day of the week, when a Daedra lord might be solicited. A Daedra lord will usually not deign to respond unless they regard a petitioner of sufficient prowess or strength of character. They will only respond if given the proper offering. The secret of which offering is often known only to the community of worshippers. In return for the completion of some task or service, the Daedra lord will often undertake to offer an artifact of power to a successful quester. Then I questioned locals with an intimate knowledge of the wilderness. Two classes of informants I found especially useful: well-traveled adventurers who might come across shrines in their travels, and scholars of the Mages Guild. In the case of the Shrine of Azura, both sources were profitable. I discovered a Chedirnhel hunter who had chanced across a strange epic statue in his travels. It depicted a woman with outstretched arms. In one hand, she held a star. In the other hand, she held a crescent moon. He had shunned the statue out of superstitious fear, but had marked the location in memory, far north of Cheydinhal, northwest of Lake Aries, high in the Gerel Mountains. After proceeding to the local mages guild with a description of the statue, I was able to confirm from its description the identity of the Daedra lord worshipped. Having discovered the location of the shrine, I visited it and discovered there the community of worshippers. Because of the strength of opinion against Daedra worship, the worshippers were at first reluctant to admit their identity. After I had won their trust, they were willing to divulge to me the secrets of the times when Azura would hear petitions, from dusk to dawn, and that the offering required by Azura was glow dust, a substance obtained from the will-o'-the-wisp. I am of course nothing more than a scholar, so it did not lie within my power to find a will-o'-the-wisp to obtain glow dust, nor am I certain that Azura would have found me worthy to make such an offering, even had I proffered it. Despite this, I was assured that if I had been able to make such an offering, and if it had been accepted, Azura would have given me some sort of quest. Upon its completion, I might have earned the reward of Azura's Star, a Daedric artifact of legendary magical powers. I have since heard rumors of the existence in Cyrodiil of several other Daedric shrines, the Daedric lords to which they are dedicated, and the Daedric artifacts that might be won by questing heroes. Hircine the Huntsman, for example, is linked in legend to the Saviour's Hide, a powerful enchanted armor. The hammer Volendrung is associated with Malakath, Lord of Monsters, and the eponymously named Mace of Molag Bal is also thought to be the object of Daedra worship. Other Daedra lords, their shrines, and their worshippers remain to be discovered by earnest and persistent researchers. Trigger warning for the next book, as rape is mentioned. Oposculus Lamae Bal ta Mezzamortie. A brief account of Lamae Bal and the restless death. Mabe Awenil, scribe. Translation by University of Gwilym Press, 2E 105. As brighter grows light, darker becomes shadow. So it passed that the Daedra Molag Bal looked on Archae and thought the Aedra prideful of his dominion over the death of man and Mer, and it was sooth. Bal, whose sphere is the wanton oppression and entrapment of mortal souls, sought to thwart Archae, who knew that not man, nor Mer, nor beastfolk of all Nirn could escape eventual death. The Aedra was doubtless of his sphere, and so Molag Bal set upon Nirn to best death. Tamriel was still young and filled with danger and wondrous magic when Bal walked in the aspect of a man and took a virgin, Lamae Bealfag, from the Nedic peoples. Savage and loveless, Bal profaned her body, and her screams became the shrieking winds which still haunt certain winding fjords of Skyrim. Shedding a lone droplet of blood on her brow, Bal left Nirn, having sown his wrath. Violated and comatose, Lamae was found by the nomads and cared for. A fortnight hence, the nomad weird woman enshrouded Lamae in pall, for she had passed into death. In their way, the nomads built a bonfire to immolate the husk. That night, Lamae rose from her funeral pyre and set upon the coven, still aflame. She ripped the throats of the women, ate the eyes of the children, and raped their man as cruelly as Bal had ravished her. And so Lamae, who is known to us as Blood Matron, imprecated her foul aspect upon the folk of Tamriel, and begat a brood of countless abominations, from which came the vampires, most cunning of the night horrors. And so was the scourge of undeath wrought upon Tamriel, cruelly mocking Arkay's rhythm of life and death through all the coming eras of the Aedra. And for all his sadness, Arkay knew this could not be undone. The Dreamstride. For over 1,000 years, the priests of Vaermina have been masters of the art of alchemy. The complexity and potency of their mixtures are nothing short of legendary. These alchemical treasures are so highly sought after that a single draft showing up on the black market can command sums in the tens of thousands. Of the numerous potions that have surfaced to date, Vaermina's torpor is perhaps the most impressive. A single sip of this vicious liquid places the imbiber in a state known as the Dreamstride. This condition allows the subject to experience the dreams of another as if he is actually there. The subject becomes an integral part of the dream. To any other entities in this dream state, the subject will be mistaken for the dreamer. The subject will even find his mannerisms, speech patterns, and knowledge expanded appropriately. To an observer, after the subject has imbibed the potion, he will appear to vanish. As the subject traverses distances within the dream, he will also traverse distances in the actual world. When the torpor's effect has expired, the subject will fade back into reality in the exact location projected within the Dreamstride. Some Dreamstrides have transported their subjects a few feet, and some have appeared thousands of miles from their origin in a matter of minutes. It's worth noting that the Dreamstride is highly dangerous and presents the subject with numerous pitfalls. In certain dreams, subjects have been exposed to life-threatening scenarios such as sicknesses, violence, and even death. In most cases, the subject simply fades back to our world without harm, but in some instances, the subject never reappears and is assumed to have expired. In other instances, the subject reappears deceased. It's also quite possible that the subject could reappear in a precarious or hazardous location in reality, even when that location appeared safe within the Dreamstride. Vaermina's torpor is as mysterious and elusive as the priests who created it. It is unknown whether this unique transport mechanism is a result of the torpor itself or simply the odd machinations of Vaermina, but the potential for using the Dreamstride to penetrate seemingly impassable obstacles certainly outweighs its mysterious nature. The House of Troubles. Among the ancient ancestral spirits who accompanied Saint Veleth and the Chimer into the promised land of Morrowind, the four Daedra lords, Malakath, Mehrunes Dagon, Molag Bal, and Sheogorath, are known as the Four Corners of the House of Troubles. These Daedra lords rebelled against the counsel and admonition of the tribunal, causing great kinstrife and confusing among the clans and great houses. Malakath, Mehrunes Dagon, Molag Bal, and Sheogorath are holy in that they serve the role of obstacles during the testing. Through time, they have sometimes become associated with local enemies, like the Nords, Akaviri, or Mountain Orcs. Malakath is the reanimated dung that was Trinimac. Malakath is a weak but vengeful god. The Dark Elves say he is Malak, the God King of the Orcs. He tests the Dunmer for physical weakness. Molag Bal is, in Morrowind, the Lord of Brutality. He tries to upset the bloodlines of great houses and otherwise ruins the Dunmer bloodline. A race of monsters said to live in Molag Amur are the result of his seduction of Vivek during the previous era. Sheogorath is the King of Madness. He always tests the Dunmer for mental weakness. In many legends, he is called upon by one Dunmer faction against another. In half of these stories, he does not betray those who called him, further confusing the issue of his place in the scheme of things. Can he help us? Is he not an obstacle? He is often associated with the fear of other races have of the Dunmer, especially those who, like the Empire, might prove as useful allies. Mehrunes Dagon is the god of destruction. He is associated with natural dangers like fire, earthquakes and floods. To some, he represents the inhospitable land of Morrowind. He tests the Dunmer will to survive and persevere. The worship of these four malevolent spirits is against the law and practice of the temple. However, the Four Corners seldom fail to discover those greedy, reckless or mad enough to serve them. By ancient temple law and custom, and also by imperial law, the lives of witches and warlocks are forfeit. Imperial garrisons join ordinators and buoyant armages of the temple in tracking down and destroying these foul covens in their wilderness refuges and ancient ruins where they conceal their profane worship. The Spawn of Molag Bal. Molag Bal enslaves. Molag Bal defiles. Molag Bal spawns children with the unwilling and harvests the soul of the unwary. Legend tells us that Molag Bal is the father of the first vampire. Though we cannot fully detail the many species of vampires, we may consider all of them to be his offspring. Most vampires can trace their lineage to the same distant ancestor, an unwilling Nedic virgin whom Molag Bal defiled. With her, he spawned a race of monsters, who then set upon nomads, spreading his corruption further. Other species of vampires are the results of pacts and bargains with Molag Bal, who answers promises of immortality and power with an eternity of damnation. Molag Bal seeds chaos and strife, spreading discord by corrupting soul after soul. His forces are legion, his patience is limitless. His ultimate goal is the domination and enslavement of all living things. The Totems of Hircine. Among those of us to whom Lord Hircine bestowed his most precious gift of lycanthropy, there are legends that he also set into the world specific artifacts of his power. They date to a period when men could neither write, nor speak, nor barely think, but the powers of blood of the beast were yet flowing strong among the selected. The first, a carved skull, the wolf itself, used by those ancient shamans in the blood ceremonies that created our lineage. It is said to grant a great presence to those who prostrate themselves before it, such that those who witness their forms cower in a terror unknown, except to those who have glimpsed the face of Hircine himself. The second, a thigh bone, carved as the skull, but from some animal unknown. Used as some form of medicinal wand in the more ancient Brotherhood, it was said to grant a kind of heightened awareness, both in sight and smell, such that the prey could never flee too far from our senses. The third, a simple drum, its mundane appearance meaning it is most likely lost to the mists of long ago time. As our fathers would beat time to summon their brethren from the fields, so too would our forebears in the blood call their allies to them with its pounding. Through these totems, we channel and focus our energies of the beast. While werewolves give up the powers of magic known to men, we can tap into a more direct, natural energy. Through these totems, we channel and focus our energies of the beast. While werewolves give up the powers of magic known to men, we can tap into a more direct, natural energy at times, and through these totems discover the abilities that first tamed the world before wrought civilization sullied it.